What up players, it's Wallboss Tapadish Mug. Welcome to my How to Paint a Lizardman Skink Part 1, where we do base coats and washes. The colors you're going to need are Stegodon Scale Green, Sotek Green, Dragonhof Nightshade, Rackhearth Flesh, Steel Legion Drab, Balthazar Gold, Agrax Earthshade, Cabalite Green. Where did my Cabalite Green go? Yeah, here. Cabalite Green and Averland Sunset. Then you get this guy. So stay tuned for part 2, and thanks for watching. Misa Jar Jar Skinks! Okay, so let's get started. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to paint on a base coat of Sotek Green. Now, although this isn't a base color, Stegodon Scale Green is so dark that by the time you paint Sotek Green on and do the shades and everything, it's okay. I've got Bobo on my back, overseeing. Now the Lizardman army was has a very special place in my heart because it was when they were re-released back in 2009, I want to say. That's kind of when I got back into the hobby. I took a 10-year hiatus. Isn't it funny how a lot of people who leave the hobby, they come back after a 10-year hiatus? Anyways, I came back into the hobby and they were just re-released. Everybody was going crazy for them. Of course, I was still loyal to my old Orcs and Goblins, so I didn't really care too much about them. And then one thing that I really didn't like was the fact that they had to be blue. I didn't get it. Why do they have to be blue? Like, they're lizards and they're supposed to be living in rainforest, and this didn't make sense to me. The jungles, I mean, of Lustria. Yeah, I know, right, Bobo? It's pretty funny. So I didn't get it, and I think that's why I just had this mental block where I couldn't really get into them as an army. But also their names, I thought their names were quite silly, like Tic-Tac-Toe, and yeah, like funny names like Tichi Tahuichi and those old kinds of like Incan and Mayan names. Okay, so this is that. We're gonna let this dry for a while. While that is drying, we are going to paint our blowpipes. Now, all the blowpipes are different, which you'll notice. And because of that, I can't give you any real way of painting them. I can tell you what I am planning on doing with my blowpipes. One of my subscribers mentioned, because I had talked about doing them all in gold, but one of my subscribers mentioned that blowpipes back then would have been made out of bone or wood. I think that's what he said. So I thought that was a great point. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to paint this blowpipe as if it were carved out of wood, and just kind of let you know what the alternative colors would be if I were to paint them as if they were made out of bone. So if I were going to paint it like it was made out of bone, I would use Rackhearth Flesh, because that's a nice base for bone. It's a good color. Because I'm going to go with wood, what I'm going to start with instead is Steel Legion Drab. Yeah, interesting. They all look like they've got these really fine carvings on them. So the skinks are like the workers, the builders of, I guess, Lizardman society. They build the temples. They are not really soldiers as much as like workers. So because of that, they are kind of smaller. They're in the fiction, they're depicted as being like very talkative and energetic and excited. And whereas the Saurus warriors are a lot bigger, ponderous, more, you know, menacing. Okay, at this point we're also going to paint in his little crest, and we're gonna do it like kind of like Bobo, make it green, and that is to give a little bit of a splash of color, because right now it's just all blue. And if you want to paint like purely Games Workshop style, what they do is they paint in they just keep painting in that like baby blue, sky blue color, but we're gonna go with a more creative color. So we're gonna actually start with, what are we starting with, Bobo? Cavalite green. This is terrible, Bobo. Neither of the first two colors that I'm putting down are base colors. What am I gonna tell all my friends? I'm so ashamed of myself. I don't know. There we go. So we're just painting a little crest here. Dilophosaurus. Spitter. Looks like a spitter. Alright, I wonder if there's anything else we can do while waiting for this guy to dry. Not really. There's some parts that I missed, so I'll go back over that with Sotek Green. But yeah, basically we're just gonna let this guy dry. We'll come back to him in a little while. There are some other details that we want to paint, like the nails and the teeth and all that stuff. And then and like the eyes, and then we can get onto the shades and the highlights. So we'll be right back in a bit. Okay, we're back. In this next step, we're going to paint in the eyes with Averland Sunset. And the first thing we're going to do is put a little bit on tip right here, on the tippity tip, and just do a little horizontal slash. And we want to get the other side. And if you need to get more on your brush from your wet palette or from the paint pot, that's fine. Alright, in this next step we're going to take our Balthazar Gold and we're going to paint in all the jewelry that our boy is wearing. So for example, most of them have, or a lot of them, I'm not sure if all of these models have it, but I've noticed a couple of these Skink models that have these little anklet bands here on their left leg. So we're just gonna paint that in, as well as the little, they have like a bracer on one of their hands. I think it's their left hand, so we're gonna paint that in with gold as well. Right there. for the I think for the darts, since we're making them the blowpipes out of wood, let's make their blow darts out of gold. The little ammunition. I think this is cool because it also gives a little bit more bling. A lot of these models, or some of these models, the ones that have the blowpipe arms, blowpipe hands, their arms have the blowpipe darts in them, like extra ammunition, so we can give it a cool little color right now to make it pop. Yeah, I like that. That looks pretty cool. We're also going to paint a little bit of a gold detail onto the blowpipe itself. Now all the blowpipes are different, but you'll be able to see once you have your blowpipe colored in where that should be. All the blowpipe designs are different, that's why, which is cool. They all have an individual design. They're not all the same, but does make it a little bit tricky when trying to get consistent. Just coloring back in now the original wood color. Now we're going to take Rack Art Flesh and paint in the binding at the top, right where the mouthpiece is. So you get something like this. This is kind of where your model should be now. While you've got some Rack Art Flesh on your brush, you're going to paint in this little guy's teeth here. Just kind of brush it along inside his mouth. Paint all those sharp, spiky teeth. And if you get any onto his lip, any of that bone color, then simple enough to solve because we're still in base colors. We're going to take Sotek Green one more time and just fix the mistakes. And the last thing we're going to do is, in this step for base coats, Rack Art Flesh on the toes. Talon of his feet. Each talon we're going to paint in right here. Under here in the back. Give our Lizardman an eyeball. So we're going to take whatever black you have, Chaos Black or Abaddon Black. And we're going to just take a little thin black line of black paint. We're going to do 2 vertical slashes right down either side. It's easier to go big like I did. And then just go back over with your Ireland Sunset to make it smaller. It's like I always say, painting is just as much about fixing your mistakes as it is about trying to get it right the first time. There, all done. Okay, the last part we're going to do in this video is we're going to paint the scales on this guy's back, or the, sorry, not the scales, but we're going to paint all over him a wash. So we're going to use this right here, Drakenhof Nightshade, and we're going to paint it over his entire body. In fact, you know what, before we do that, let's actually paint the scales on his back. So we're going to paint the scales Stegodon Scale Green. That's a base color, so the first time when I tried doing this on my test model, I actually painted the whole model in this and then built up to Sotek. But what I found when doing that is that you have to make everything lighter, whereas if you do this, paint everything in Sotek Green first, then just kind of focus on these scales, then you have a lot more control. Like these individual scales here, you don't have to try to get in between them with the Sotek Green. Yeah, if you look at all the Lizardman pictures on the Games Workshop website or anywhere like that, hi, any buns? You'll notice that the scales are darker than the skin. The skin is like lighter. Do you want to paint lizards with me? Mm-hmm. Pull up a chair. Let's paint lizards. Oh, we should have brought cereal. That sounded like No more cereal milk?
No more cereal milk.
Oh. We love cereal. Okay, so the last thing we're going to do in this step is now we're going to take our Drakenhof Nightshade and we're going to, I want cereal, paint. Yeah, because this is the effect we want to get to. So this is when I start with Stegodon Scale Green. This is the other one. So we're going to paint over the entire skin area. So not the scales because that's still wet, but everything else we're just going to lather this over. In fact, if you want to wait, if it makes you nervous to have the scales still wet, then you can do that too. But I'm just gonna paint around them to get the shading done. Down through there, then up through the arm here. And this is a shade, so you want to try and get it in as many of the cracks and the crevices as you can. And you just don't want it, you don't want too much because you don't want it to pool and then drag to the bottom of the model. That makes any sense. You just want enough that it'll fill the grooves and all the little shadows of the model to make these shadows. Why not? Let's paint this little green crest as well. So I'm gonna leave it there, players, and when we get back, I will have let the scales on his back dry, and then I'll also paint those in with Drakenhof Nightshade. But for now, this is kind of where we're gonna leave it today. One more thing you can do, actually, that I just noticed, is we can take our Agrax Earthshade and we can paint in his blowpipe. And that is it. That's gonna do it. Don't worry about the Drakenhof Nightshade being very, very dark. We're gonna brighten up the model in the next video with all of our Temple Guard blue, that light sky blue, after this all dries. So thanks for watching, players, and we'll see you in the next part of how to paint a Lizardman skink. Laters!